Dave Scott, Randy Halmo, another music experience for all the folks that like to listen and watch our show. Randy, I wanted you to do this show because this next guest that we sort of this next musician that we're going to talk about today, because a lot of impact in my life listening to his music, from the Traveling Wilburys to his solo albums like Wildflower to, Free Fallin', one of his biggest singles. Tom Petty was such a musician, such a talent. And I thought, I'm going to aim this at Randy and say, tell me all about Tom Petty, where it started, why it got so big, and sort of who this man was.
That sounds great, Dave. Well, what I'd like to share with our audience, I'll just give kind of a tiny capsule comment on Tom Petty and during his prime time, his years of singing, his acting, personal life, the honors and the awards too. So first of all, we're going to start with Tom's early life. Then we'll hit his career prime time, 1976 to 1987. His Traveling Wilburys career, 1988 to 1991. And plus, indeed, his solo career too, just as important. So, Tom Petty. He was born on October 20th, 1950. And I got 2 years on him. I was 48. Anyway, he was an American musician who was the lead vocalist and guitarist of the rock band Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And that band was formed in the year of 1976. Now, previous to that, he led the band called Mudcrunch. And he was a member of the late 1980s supergroup, of course, the Traveling Wilburys. But, too, we have to look at his solo career because he was very successful as a solo artist also. Tom Petty had many hit records, hit singles. Example, 1976, American Girl, good song there. Don't Do That to Me, 1979. Refugee, 1980. Around Here, Don't Come Around Here No More, 1985. Free Fallin', great song, 1989. Free Fallin', love that song to death. And of course, there were other hit songs for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2002, and he was honored by the Music Cares Person of the Year in February of 2017. So this is just the beginning for Tom Petty. And as I mentioned earlier, he was born October 20th, 1950 in Gainesville, Florida. He was the first of two sons of Kitty Petty, who was a local tax office worker, and his dad, Earl Petty, who was a traveling salesman. Maybe a traveling Wilbury, too. Anyway, Tom's interest in rock and roll music began when he was 10 years old, when he met the king, Elvis Presley. In the summer of 1961, his uncle was working on the set of Presley's film Follow That Dream. So his uncle invited Petty to watch the shoot. Like, how good is that? Here's Elvis Presley, Tom Petty, 10 years young, and his uncle invites him to watch the shoot of Follow That Dream, Elvis Presley. That's bigger than, the biggest.
It's almost predetermined that he's going to be a rock star right there.
Yeah.
Like you're that young meeting Elvis. That's cool.
Yeah. And of course, he instantly became a Elvis Presley fan. And when he returned, he was greeted by his friend Keith Harbin, and soon traded his Whammo slingshot for a collection. Keith gave him a collection of his Elvis 45 records. Hey, that's all right.
That worked out.
Of that meeting with Presley, and I quote, Tom Petty said, Elvis glowed. In a 2006 interview, Petty said he knew he wanted to be in a band the moment he saw the Beatles, and this would be February 9th, 1964, on the Ed Sullivan Show. It's true. Thousands of guys They were out there doing their thing. Tom Petty said, there's a way to do this. You get your friends, you get your self-contained unit, and you make your music. And it looked like so much fun. It was something that he identified with, and he wasn't really into sports, but he loved music. And being a big fan of Elvis, wow. And of course, seeing the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, he was locked in for life. Music was indeed his passion. In an interview with CBC in 2014, Petty stated that the Rolling Stones were my punk music. He credited the group with inspiring him by demonstrating that he and the musicians like him could make it in rock and roll. And boy, did they ever. Wow. Isn't that something, Dave? Here again, you get another solid group, the Rolling Stones. And Mick Jagger, even at the age of 72 years young, is still performing. The Rolling Stones still got it. But what an interesting comparison. Okay, so he's met Elvis Presley. He's seen the February 9th, 1964 Ed Sullivan Show featuring the Beatles, first time in North America. And of course, now the Rolling Stones. So these are super powerful rock groups down through the ages. And what a great setting for a start for Tom Petty in his music career. Wouldn't you agree, Dave?
Totally agree. And I mean, it's, you know, just meeting Elvis alone, like we talked about, was probably so influential as a young man in wanting to get into music. It must have been that, obviously it was that first step to success, because once he saw, like he said, Elvis glowed, he knew that's what he probably wanted to do. And then you got, like you said, the Beatles having a strong influence, and the Stones. Well, it's not going to get much better than those three right there.
Oh, yeah, big time. And Don Felder. Well, we all know Don Felder. He was a fellow Gainesville resident who later joined the Eagles and claimed in his autobiography that he was one of Petty's first guitar teachers. How good is that? Although Petty said that Felder taught him to play piano instead. Hey, that's all right, though. As a young man, Petty worked briefly on the grounds crew at the University of Florida, but he never attended as a student. Oh, okay. Tom Petty, what they did in later years at the University of Florida, they planted a lime tree in memory of Tom when he passed in 2017. And also, Tom Petty, he had some brief work as a gravedigger. Wow. Okay. Tom Petty also overcame a difficult relationship with his father. Now, according to Tom, his father found it difficult to accept that Tom was a mild-mannered kid who was interested in the arts, and subjected him to verbal and physical abuse. How sad. Very, very sad. Okay, let's take a look at the primetime years for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And we covered the years from 1976 to 1987. Now, Tom Petty started a band known as the Epics, which later developed into the Mud Crunch. The band included future Heartbreakers members like Mike Campbell, Bonmint Tench, who was popular in Gainesville. They recorded at the Church Studio in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Their only single that year in 76 was Depot Street, which was released in 1975 by Shelter Records. And Shelter Records were just starting out. So obviously that song did not chart. Now, after Mud Crunch split up, Tom reluctantly agreed to pursue a solo career. Okay, so Tench decided to form his own group. So they kind of split up, still in music, did their own thing. Eventually, Petty and Campbell collaborated with Tench, Ron Blair, and Stan Lynch, forming the first lineup of the Heartbreakers. Okay, so here we go. Here comes the formation of the Heartbreakers. So, and with that, they developed and released two songs, American Girl and Breakdown, in 1977. And they peaked at number 40 in the Billboard Top 100. The second album they did was You're Gonna Get It, was the band's first top 40 album ever. And it featured, well, just to mention a few of the singles, I Need to Know, Listen to Her Heart. So this was really the major beginning of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. In September of 1979, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers performed at a Musicians United Safe Energy concert, and of course that was in Madison Square Garden, New York. And their rendition of Cry to Me was featured on the resulting album, No Nukes. The fourth album they did, Hard Promises, was released in 1981, and it became a top 10 hit, going platinum, that's right, and spawning the hit The Waiting. The album also featured Tom Petty's first duet, Insider, with none other than Stevie Nicks. How good is that? She's pretty easy on the eyes, that gal.
Hey, Randy, that first album they released, I'm not sure. I don't know if you have the information there, but was it Damn the Torpedoes? Was that the first album or the second? I can't remember.
That would have been the first album. Yeah, you're correct, Dave. First album.
And did that album have Refugee on it too, I think? I think it did.
Yes, indeed it did. Yep. Right.
Because that was my first Tom Petty album way back in the day.
Yep.
And I remember hearing his voice on Refugee, and it was so different from everybody else's voices. And I think that's what got me sort of into Tom Petty, was it didn't sound like anybody else, right? It kind of was nasally and throaty, and it had all the different kind of mechanics to it. But I bought in, I think the album too, probably, Damn the Torpedoes was a great title for an album, and it was typical Tom Petty. But yeah, I when you brought that up, and I was like having a flashback there. Sorry, I probably zoned out for a minute, but but going back to Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers and Damn the Torpedoes, great album.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely right, Dave. Tom Petty had a completely different voice, and to hear him singing with his voice, you could really separate the difference from other singers. His voice was so unique and totally different. And too, he had a lot of good musicians with the Heartbreakers. So
yeah, I was going to say, and
that combination, it was a win-win situation.
And the Heartbreakers, when that album came out, the sound was so tight. You know what I mean? Like it was like, I think he was a bit of I don't know, I'm just speculating, but I think he was probably a bit of a perfectionist, because that album was damn good. I got to tell you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And in 1985, the band participated in the Live Aid concert, playing 4 songs at the John F. Kennedy Stadium in Philadelphia. Southern Accents was also released in 1985. Now, this album, that included the hit single, Don't Come Around Here Anymore, and it was produced by Dave Stewart. Now, the song's video featured Tom Petty dressed as a Mad Hatter, walking and chasing Alice from the book Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. How good is that? Now, they also played some dates too, Dave, with the Grateful Dead in 1986 and 1987. And in 1987, the group released Let Me Up, which includes Jammin' Me, which Tom Petty wrote this together with Bob Dylan.
Oh, I didn't know that.
How good is that?
That's pretty cool.
So he's teaming up with Bob Dylan, just a 60s, 70s superstar in music. Let's now take a look at the years from 1988 to 1991. And this, we kind of focus on, of course, the Traveling Wilburys and his solo career. In 1988, Tom Petty, along with George Harrison, Bob Dylan, Roy Orbison, how good is this, and Jeff Lynne, was a founding member of the Traveling Wilburys. Now, the band's first song, Handle with Care, was intended as a B-side of one of George Harrison's singles, but was judged too good for that, so they put it on the A side, and it went right up the charts on the Billboard Top 100, and it really got them started. The first full album, The Traveling Wilburys, was absolutely amazing.
Yep.
Okay, not taking anything away from the first album, a second Wilburys album, entitled Traveling Wilburys Volume 2, was recorded, and it did very well on the charts too. So here we have the incorporation of the Traveling Wilburys, and of course, Beatle George Harrison, Bob Dylan, Roy Orbison, and of course Jeff Lynne, 4 outstanding artists who are multi-platinum award winners in their songs that they've created and written. So
if you ever get a chance, Randy, I think it's on YouTube somewhere, but there's actual footage of them at Dylan's place when they did the first Wilburys album.
Oh yes, yeah,
it's right amazing to watch, and it's just they just had the camera rolling as they're just making up songs and playing around. It was pretty cool. It's not a very long video. I think George Harrison's wife might have done it, but it was really neat just to see these guys. No egos at all, just musicians wanting to play together, right? It was so cool to watch.
To create some different kind of music. And I would think, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I would say through all of their music and their albums, the huge hit single for the Traveling Wilburys would be End of the Line.
Yeah.
Great song.
Yes.
Great song. And in 1989, Tom Petty released Full Moon Fever. And that featured hits like on the album, like I Won't Back Down, Free Fallin', great song. I would say next to the End of the Line, Dave, Tom Petty's Free Fallin', probably one of my favorites. What's your favorite song, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Dave?
I like, and we're probably going to get to it, but I like Wildflowers. It's off that album. It's called Wildflower. It's just one of those songs that I feel like there was something going on in his life at that time. And just when that song came out, I really, really liked it. I mean, Free Fallin' is another one for sure. And the story behind Free Fallin' was that the record company it was done before the Wilburys album, but the record company really didn't like it. And Jeff Lynne had produced that album with Tom Petty. So it kind of got shoved to the back, but it was done before. And then it came out after the Wilburys. And, people often say that he copied the sound from the Wilburys, but it was actually the opposite. It was the other way around. That album was done first, but and such a huge success. I think a couple of the Heartbreakers did background on that. I'm not positive, but I've read a few books on it, and I think they did. And just Petty at his finest too. Again, just making music like he can.
Unbelievable. And Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers reformed in 1991, and they released Into the Great Wide Open, which was co-produced by Lynne, and it included the hit singles Learning to Fly, Into the Great Wide Open, of course, the latter featuring Johnny Depp and Faye Dunaway in the music video. How good is that? Faye
Didn't know that either. Pretty cool.
Now, before leaving MCA Records, which in the 80s was huge, they were the #1 record company right around the world at that time. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers got together to record live in the studio 2 new songs for a greatest hits package. One was Mary Jane's Last Dance and Thunderclap Newman's Something in the Air, which of course Thunderclap Newman, Something in the Air, that went quadruple platinum back in 1987. So here we have again, he's working with different rock groups that have been well established. And of course, they respect for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers also, because they are well on their way to being one of the greatest rock bands in music history. So We now take a look at the years from 1991 to 2017. And in 1989, while still under contract with MCA, Tom Petty secretly signed a lucrative deal with Warner Brother Records, to which the Traveling Wilburys had been signed. Now, his first album on the new label, 1994's Wildflowers, here we go. This would be Petty's second of 3 solo albums, included the highly beloved title track, Wildflowers, as well as You Don't Know How It Feels, You Wrecked Me, It's Good to Be a King, A Higher Place. These are just a few of the singles off of that album. But Wildflowers, wow, the second of 3 solo albums. That album, Wildflowers, by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, went quadruple platinum only 6 weeks after it was released. Quadruple platinum. And that is major, huge. Like, if you do platinum sales, that's one thing. But he's done quadruple platinum on one album. Good name to remember. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, their album entitled Wildflowers. Must have, must get. And of course, now in a lot of the record stores, CD shops, vinyl is coming back in a big, big way. Last year, just an off comment here, vinyl sales, actually, there were more vinyl sales last year in North America than CD sales for the first time ever.
I read that too. That's incredible, eh? I think I read 41 million vinyl records were sold. That's what a comeback. Super wonderful.
Yeah. I got, when I started my DJ business, of course I started on vinyl, still have my turntables, still have lots of vinyl. So basically I could, with a little bit of practice, I'm a little rusty between the ears right now with the vinyl, but I could definitely go out and DJ a wedding on vinyl, a fundraiser, whatever. Would not be a problem.
Do you think vinyl sounds better than CDs?
I do, Dave. I think CDs are very good, but the crispness and the exactness of the vinyl, when it's playing, you set that needle down on the vinyl. There's a sound there that is so crisp and pure. Cassettes, CDs, nothing can touch vinyl. It's
the tone, isn't it? It's the feel.
Absolutely.
There's feel in vinyl, in the music. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. And in 2005, Tom Petty hosted his own show called Buried Treasure. Now, this was hosted on XM satellite radio, on which he shared selections from his personal record collection. So here we are, 2005. In 2006, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers headlined the 5th annual Bonnaroo Music and Arts Festival as part of their 30th anniversary tour. And special guests included on the tour, ready for this? Oh, wow. This reads like a who's who of music. Special guests included Stevie Nicks, Pearl Jam, the Allman Brothers Band, the Derek Trucks Band, the Black Crowes.
Black Crowes.
And Stevie Nicks, she joined Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers on stage for a selection of songs, including Stop Draggin', My Heart Around. Wow. In July of 2006, Tom Petty released a solo album titled Highway Companion, which included the hit song Saving Grace. That's a good song, Saving Grace. It debuted at number 4 on the Billboard Top 200, which was Petty's highest chart position since the introduction of the Nielsen Sound Scan system for tracking albums since 1991.
Interesting.
The Highway Companion was briefly promoted on the tour with the Heartbreakers in 2006, of course, with performances of Saving Grace, Square One, Down South, and Flirting with Time. During the summer of 2007, Tom reunited with his old bandmates, Tom Leadon, Randall Marsh, and Beno Tench, and Mike Campbell. So here we have a reformation of the Heartbreakers. And the quintet recorded an album of 14 songs that was released on April 29th, 2008. And also on iTunes, an additional song, Special Place, was available if the album was pre-ordered. Okay, so here now we're getting into iTunes. And the band supported the album with a brief tour of California in the spring of 2008. In February 2008, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers performed during the halftime show of the Super Bowl. That'd be Super Bowl 52, I believe. And that was at the University of Phoenix Stadium. They played, of course, one of their big hits, American Girl, Free Fallin', I Won't Back Down, Running Down a Dream, just to mention a few.
Yeah.
So here we are, February the 3rd, 2008. University of Phoenix Stadium, Super Bowl time. During that summer, Dave, the band toured North America with Steve Winwood. That's the opening act, Steve Winwood. And Winwood joined Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers on stage at select shows during his performance, his Spencer Davis Group hit, Give Me Some Lovin', okay? And occasionally he performed his Blind Faith hit, Can't Find My Way Home. Like, how good is it? This is an anthology plus. He's right involved with, at the time, the greatest artists, the greatest bands. So he's right in there, right in the thick of things. The band's 12th album, Mojo, was released on June 15, 2010, and it reached number 2 on the Billboard 200 album chart. And Tom Petty described the album as blues-based. Some of the tunes are longer and more jammy kind of music. Well, that's all right. A couple of the tracks really sounded a lot like the Allman Brothers. Not the songs, but the atmosphere of the band. Now, to promote the record, the band appeared as a musical guest on Saturday Night Live on May 15th, 2010. The release of Mojo was followed by a North American summer tour. Prior to the tour, 5 of the band's guitarists, including 2 owned by Tom Petty, were stolen from their practice space in Culver City, California. And I've been to Culver City, California. Anyway, the items were recovered by the Los Angeles police in less than 7 days.
Good.
How good is that? That's wonderful. In 2012, the band went on a world tour that included their first European dates in 20 years and their first ever concerts in Canada, covering the provinces of Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and Labrador.
I did not know that. Interesting.
In July 28, 2014, Reprise Records, big record company, of course, Frank Sinatra on Reprise, they released Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers' 13th studio album entitled Hypnotic Eye. Now, the album debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200, becoming the first Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers album to ever top the chart. And this was July 28, 2014. And on November 20th, 2015, Tom Petty radio channel debuted on Sirius XM. In 2017, the Heartbreakers embarked on a 40th anniversary tour of the United States. The tour began on April 20th in Oklahoma City and ended on September 25th with a performance at the Hollywood Bowl in Hollywood, California. And the Hollywood Bowl in Hollywood, California, I've been down there on a couple of times, and the acoustics around the Hollywood Bowl, it's just like sitting in a quadraphonic music chamber, and the band is playing only to you as a person. It is phenomenal.
I did not know that. That's pretty cool.
At the Hollywood Bowl. Unbelievable. Tom Petty, he did a little bit of acting. His first appearance was in a film that took place in 1978. It was only a cameo appearance in the movie, ready for this, Dave? In the movie FM. Oh, dear. He later had a small part in the 1987's movie Made in Heaven, and also Gary Shandling's show between 1987 and 1990, playing himself. And Petty also appeared in some of the films of The Postman, 1997, directed and starred Kevin Costner. At the Bay City Bridge, Mayor, another appearance there. The Simpsons, he appeared in The Simpsons. So getting a little bit into acting, but you know, his main dramatics, of course, were Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And Tom had a reoccurring role as the voice of Elroy Lucky. And this was an animated comedy series, King of the Hill, and that was from 2004 to 2009. And in 2010, got to mention this to our audience, Dave, Tom Petty made a 5-second cameo appearance with comedian Andy Samberg in a music video entitled Great Day, featured on the bonus DVD as part of the Lonely Island's new album, Turtleneck and Change.
Yep. Andy Samberg, yeah, that's pretty funny.
That's darn good. Tom's personal life. Tom married Jane Benyo in 1974. Unfortunately, they divorced in 1996. Petty and Benyo had 2 daughters, Adria and Anakim. Wow. Now, she's a director, and Anakim, she's a tremendously good artist. Benico once told mutual friend Stevie Nicks that she had met Tom Petty at the age of 17. Nicks, she misheard Benyo's North Florida accent, inspiring the title of her song, The Edge of 17.
Edge of 17.
For Stevie Nicks. In June 3rd, 2001, Tom Petty married Dana York, who had a son, Dylan, from an earlier marriage. Petty spoke in 2014 of the benefits from his practice of transcendental meditation, of course. Yeah. I can't say that fast 10 times. And of course, George Harrison of the Beatles and John Lennon, they were very into transcendental meditation. Unfortunately, on October 2nd, 2017, Tom Petty had passed due to cardiac arrest. However, we look at his legacy. We look at the awards and the honors. In 1994, You Got Lucky. This was a Tom Petty tribute album featuring such bands as Everclear and Silkworm. So here we have a tremendous accompaniment of awards during his career. In April of 1996, Tom Petty received the UCLA's George Gershwin and Ira Gershwin Award for a Lifetime Musical Achievement. How good is that?
That's
just recently this year, Alan Jackson received the Lifetime Musical Award from the Country Music Awards Association. So Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers also received a star, of course, on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1999 for their contribution to the recording industry. In December 2001, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which further honored Tom Petty with an exhibit of his items from July 6th until July 2006 until 2007. He is ranked 91st on Rolling Stone's list of the greatest artists of all time. Tom Petty received the Billboard Century Award, the organization's highest honor for creative achievement, on December 6, 2005. In September 2006, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers received the keys to the city of Gainesville, Florida, where he and his bandmates either lived or grew up. How fitting. How fitting is that? And Petty was honored as MusiCare's Person of the Year in February 2017 for his contributions to music, and what an outstanding award that was. So we can see that Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, during their wonderful career of music, have won many, many awards in the music circles. And they are right up there with the very best of the bands over the many decades of music. Wouldn't you agree, Dave, on that?
Yeah, Randy, I really totally agree. A couple sidebars notes I wanted to add. He did some music with Johnny Cash as well, which was really cool. I know that was one of the things that he really, I had saw an interview that he really wanted to do. Johnny Cash was one of his idols as well.
Yes.
And the other thing was off of, I think it was Full Moon Fever. One of the songs that kids, my son, just absolutely adored was Dancing at the Zombie Zoo, which was just another Tom Petty having fun. Great song.
Yes.
Lots of fun. If you've never heard it, folks, give it a listen.
Yes.
Amazing career. Part of my teenage years, his music was right there at the forefront. It just seemed like every time you turned around, he had another big hit.
That's
and
right.
It sounded totally different, and it was always something creative and new, right? So
yep, new, fresh, and very creative, as you had mentioned, Dave. Yep.
And you look at his life.
Those hits.
You look at his life, and you look at all the musicians that he got to work with from a very early age, meeting Elvis, right through to playing with the Wilburys. I mean, what a life! What a life he led. Amazing.
Best of the best.
Yeah.
He just unbelievable. Of course, Ed Sullivan, February the 9th, 1964. At the Beatles, he was just enthralled, just flattered. This is it. And then, of course, meeting Elvis Presley. That's what really started Tom Petty into music. Hey, I can do this. Yeah, sure, I can do this. And boy, he set to work and he did it. And of course, too, with the Heartbreakers, he had good musicians, good artists in his group. But, that's part of the team effort, too.
Yeah.
But Tom Petty, as a solo artist, did very well, too, along with when he was with the Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers group. So overall, he was a master of his music.
Master of his music.
He shared that with the world.
Randy, I got to thank you for doing this. Tom Petty, one of my favorites, and I'm glad we got to have this discussion. Next month, folks, Randy and I are going to try something a little different. Randy's going to pick a song. I'm going to pick a song, and we're going to tear it apart. We're going to look at it from the point of view of what the song means and what the song means to us. And as individuals in our communities and how it maybe affected us in our careers of growing up. And I'm really looking forward to that, Randy. It's something new you and I have both wanted to try, and we're going through the music right now, trying to figure out what we want to, what our stories want to start with. So I appreciate you taking the time to do this with me. I know you're a busy guy, so thanks for doing that. And I look forward to next month and our new challenge.
Hey, that sounds great, Dave. And thank you very much for working along with me again. That's really a great team effort here. And we'll catch you next month. This will be an exciting folks show you do not want to miss.